Learn audio online with Audio Masterclass. AudioMasterclass.com.
Comb filtering can happen when a sound mixes with its own reflection, or when a signal mixes with a delayed version of itself. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate what comb filtering looks like and what it sounds like. My sound source to start off with is going to be a frequency sweep, a sine wave going from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Let's hear it. I heard some rather interesting distortion at the end. Maybe it's my system. Did you hear it? If you did hear it, leave a comment and tell me what you heard. I might investigate it in a future video. What I'll do now is create an auxiliary track and insert a plugin so we can have a look at what's going on as well as listen. I'm going to route my sine wave to the auxiliary track and just test it to make sure. Okay, there we have it. And we've got the sine wave in the oscilloscope section of this plugin. I'm going to use what's called spectrum here, but I would normally call it a spectrograph. And a spectrograph is a device or software that produces a spectrogram. So let's have a look at the spectrogram and see what we get. Okay, that's far enough for now. It's in the nature of spectrographs that there are some errors in what you see. So first we'll check the level over here. We can see that it's coming in at minus 12.0 dB. It means dBFS. So the level is consistent all the way through, or at least as far as we need to go. But if we look at it here, what we can see is this peak level. It seems to diminish as the frequency gets higher. Okay, so that's just an error in the spectrograph, so we won't bother about that. We'll just expect it and accept it as it is for the moment. So what I'm going to do now is set things up so that this sine wave sweep mixes with a delayed version of itself. So what I'll do is duplicate the track and I'll zoom in and I'm going to delay the copy by 5 milliseconds. Okay, so now we can listen again and let's see what we get. Okay, that's far enough. So this is comb filtering, and it's called comb filtering because the chart looks like the teeth of a comb. So at some points in the frequency scale, the two sine waves are in phase and they add up together and double, which means they rise by 6 dB. And at other points in the frequency scale, they're 180 degrees out of phase, so they cancel out pretty much completely. Let's have a look at a point where they combine constructively. So I'll go to 100 Hz. Here we are at 100 Hz, and I know it's here because I checked earlier. So if I zoom in, we can see there that we've got this peak on the top and this trough on the bottom, and they're going to cancel each other out. Let me just zoom in a little bit on the height of that so you can see it better. There we go. So we've got the peak on the top and the trough on the bottom, which will cancel out. Now I'll go to 200 Hz and we'll see what happens there. So once again, this is where 200 Hz is in the sweep, and I checked that earlier to save time in the video. So I'll magnify that, And magnify it again. And give it a bit of height. Okay. Okay, there we are. So we're not quite in the right place there, but we're near enough to see that here we've got a peak and here we've got a peak, just slightly out of time there. And they will add together, causing an increase in level. So this is what we get. We get at 100 Hertz, 300 Hertz, 500 Hertz. We get the dips in level and they look like the teeth of the comb. And at 200 Hertz, 400 Hertz, 600 Hertz, etc., that's where we get the peaks. Clearly this will change if the delay time changes. And that's something you might want to try for yourself. So let's listen to it and watch it again. I love that distortion at the end. I think I'd like to try and do something creative with it one day. Okay, so I'm going to try a similar test, and this time I'm going to do it with white noise. So let me set that up. So here's one track of white noise. So it's standing in for a music signal or speech or whatever you might be recording in real life. It sounds like this. Okay, we don't need to hear any more than that. Now I'm going to duplicate it and delay it. I'm going to delay it by 5 milliseconds. That's 5 milliseconds. It doesn't matter what the exact delay is, and I would certainly encourage you to try it for yourself and let me know in the comments how you get on. So before I play it, just have a little think. What's it going to sound like and what's it going to look like? Okay, here we go. So it's a bit of a racket, but I'm going to talk over it and mute it a little bit maybe so you can hear me clearly. So here we can see we've got a dip at 100 Hertz thereabouts, and at 300, 500, 700, 900, exactly as before. And we've got these peaks at 200, 400, 600, 800, etc. You get the idea. It sounds pretty dreadful, doesn't it? Let me just compare white noise by itself with the comb filtered version. So I'll use the solo buttons here. So that'll be just the noise by itself, and that'll be the comb filtered version. Here we go. So if it's going to do that and make that horrible sound just with white noise, what is it got to do with music or speech? We'll find out in a moment. So let's just try adjusting the delay time and see what different sounds we get from this. Firstly, just for completeness, I'll make it so there's 0 delay. What you'll hear will just be louder. Okay, so let's try 1 millisecond of delay. That is just so different. 2 milliseconds. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. 3 milliseconds. They all sound bad. It's a question of taste as to which sounds worse. Let's go up to a higher delay setting. Let's go for, where are we? 10 milliseconds, see what that sounds like. It's getting a bit of a buzz effect. Let's try 20. There's something going on really deep down in the bass. Let's try more. Let's go up to 50 milliseconds, see what we get. 50 milliseconds. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but there we go. I think what we can hear from that is that it's those short delay times that are the real killers, and the longer delay doesn't seem to matter so much. Not that it doesn't matter at all, it just doesn't seem to matter so much. Let's try a longer delay. So where are we there? 103, doesn't have to be exact. Okay, with white noise, it sounds pretty much the same at this point. But with a normal audio signal, whether it's music or speech, you would start to hear the delay as an echo, which would be another bad thing. There's so many bad things that you need to avoid in audio, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a speech signal and see what it does, see what comb filtering does to speech. Let's see if I can find a poem. So here we have a poem. It's me recording in Abbey Road Studio 2, and I can't remember off the top of my head which microphone it was, but if you'd like me to find out, leave a comment and I'll dig deep into the archives and find out which microphone it was. Let's listen to the poem just by itself. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Okay, yes, I know, I got the words wrong. I like to tell people that I was reading from Wordsworth's first draft of the poem, so that's my excuse. I'll just play it again, because there's something we need to look out for. I wandered lonely as a cloud. So if you look here,
floats on high,
you will see peaks and troughs in the response.
All at once I saw a crowd.
That's nothing to do with comb filtering this time, because I was well away from any reflective surfaces. That's just the harmonics in my voice. So where you see peaks, that's where the harmonics are strong, and where it's troughs, that's where they're weaker.
I wandered lonely as a cloud
so there we
that
go.
Floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden.
So that's not the comb filter. We don't need to worry about that. So I'll duplicate the track just like I did before, and once again I'll delay it, and I'll go for the 5 milliseconds again. So let's take those solos off. So let's listen to it now and see what we get in the spectrograph display.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Oh, that's dreadful. That's dreadful. That is just so dreadful. But we need to listen to it.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
Okay, that sounds bad. So, as before, it's probably a good idea to try some different delay times. So, without any delay at all, I'll do the solo thing again. So, without any delay at all, it's going to sound like this.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
So it's just 6 decibels louder, that's all. So if I now delay it by 1 millisecond, so when that solo is active, you're hearing just the original. When I switch that off, you're hearing the comb filtered version.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd.
Okay, it's bad. Try this.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host.
Dreadful. Let's try 5 milliseconds.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden.
Okay, just as I did before, I think it's worthwhile trying the longer delay time. So let's try 20 milliseconds. So that's quite a long delay. That would correspond in sound travelling in air to a path difference of 20 feet, or 20 times 30 centimetres if you can work that out in your head. 6 metres approximately. So let's see what that sounds like.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill.
You see, what we're getting now is an echo, so it's not changing the texture of the sound so much as adding the echo. But we'll listen again.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils.
So if we go further to 40 milliseconds, no, let's go to 100 milliseconds. Okay, we're spot on 100 there.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill.
So at this point it becomes an echo and the comb filtering has effectively vanished. So I think we've been through pretty much all of it. We've tried sine waves, we've tried white noise, and we've tried speech. If you'd like me to do a demonstration on music, then I can make another video and add that. But it will probably sound pretty much like we've heard it already. Comb filtering, as you've heard, is not a good thing and should be avoided. Where comb filtering typically would happen would be when you're recording. If you've got a hard surface nearby, then the reflection from the hard surface will mix with the original signal after a delay. And that could happen if you're speaking at a desk and the microphone is mounted at pretty much the normal distance from your mouth. Then the mic will pick up the direct sound from your mouth, and it'll also pick up the reflection that bounces off the desk after a short delay. And the path difference could be something in the region of maybe, I don't know, 30 centimeters, something like that, which is 1 foot, and sound travels at roughly 1 foot per millisecond. So you've got a millisecond of delay there. The other place you'll get comb filtering typically, let's say you record an instrument in stereo with spaced microphones, but the microphones are at slightly different distances from each other. Then there'll be a delay between the microphones. If you listen in stereo, what that'll mean is that the instrument seems to be panned either to the left or to the right because of that time difference and the slight level difference as well. But if there's some reason why you have to collapse that stereo into mono, suddenly you've got that signal mixing with a delayed version of itself, and once again you'll get comb filtering. Just to round off, I'm going to do something which is a little bit more realistic. I'm going to try and mimic the situation where you're recording at a desk. So I'll use the same poem, which wasn't at a desk, but I'll treat the delay so that it is similar to the way you might expect an echo from a desktop surface to sound. So I'll go back to 1 millisecond. So that's replicating a path difference of 1 foot or 30 centimeters. And I'll go into my plugins here and I'll take an EQ. Which EQ shall Which EQ shall I choose? Occam's razor says choose the simplest. So this is a standard EQ that comes with Pro Tools, but you can do this in any digital audio workstation software. And I'm going to use the low pass filter. The reason being that when the sound reflects from the desk, even though the desk is hard, there will be a certain amount of absorption of high frequencies. So I'm going to put that at, let me think. I'm going to leave it at 1000 Hertz because we do want to hear the effect. And also I want the level of the reflection to be lower. So let me go to the mix screen. So there we have it. I'll take the solo off and let me put the level 10 decibels down to account for any absorption in the desk. So I'll do the same as before. When the solo's on, you're hearing only the original recording. When it's off, you're hearing the two together with that delay. So let's try it.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
You see, this is where it gets to a point of subtlety that I think to many listeners that would be okay. But to someone who's experienced in audio, then you can hear the difference. The thing is, if you hadn't heard the original, could you hear the comb filtering without any reference to compare it with? That's where it gets tricky. I'll put that level back up to 0 so we can hear it with the low-pass filter.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils.
Yeah, that's definitely degraded. So that's the kind of thing that you should be listening for. Whenever you're recording and you see hard surfaces, alarm bells, comb filtering is likely to happen, so you need to be listening out for it and make sure that it doesn't happen. What could I do to eliminate the comb filtering from the desk? They used to be in the past. I haven't seen them recently, so maybe they're not a thing anymore. Or maybe I just haven't looked hard enough. You could buy acoustic tables which didn't have a solid top. They had like a lattice top, so most of the sound would just go straight through and wouldn't reflect. Alternatively, you can put something absorbent on top of the surface. So just remember that sound reflects like light in a mirror. The angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection, or the angle of reflection equals the angle of incidence, as I normally like to say, to get things in the right order. So Where it's reflecting from back into the microphone, that's where you need to put your absorption. And using just something as simple as a towel could be perfectly effective. So there we have it, comb filtering. What fun. I'm David Mellor, Course Director of Audio Masterclass. Thank you for listening.